So what I'll do now is I'll just introduce our first presenter. So online from Melbourne, we have Brian Crampton. And those of you who've attended CCAV or been in the cemetery sector for many years will all know Brian's name. But Brian is the manager of the cemetery sector governance unit. That's a part of his title. We won't go through the whole title. Anyway, Brian's here to talk around about the performance audits for Class B Cemetery Trust, as well as answer some of the questions that have been provided. So we welcome Brian.
Hi everyone, I hope you're having a great conference so far. I'd like to thank Annie, the CCAV Committee of Management and the Beechworth Cemetery Trust for their hard work in setting up the conference and for their kind invitation for me to present to you today. I'd like to begin by acknowledging and paying my respects to the traditional custodians on the land on which we gathered today. I would also like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders here today, also paying my respects to your elders past, present and emerging. Today my presentation will cover the following: the recent amendments to the Cemeteries and Crematoria Act. I'll provide an overview of the department's performance support program, provide an outline of the resources developed by the department for trusts. I'll also provide an update on the Class B network piloting pilot project. I will also answer the questions CCAV have submitted to the department on behalf of trusts. So as you're aware, there's been a number of amendments to the Cemeteries and Crematoria Act. These amendments came into effect in two stages. The first stage was to introduce a new power for the Secretary of the Department of Health to vary or force the surrender of a right of interment to protect persons from further harm who have been directly and adversely affected by an indictable offence, or the death of a person where the coroner has identified a responsible person in relation to that death and the responsible person is themselves dead. For example, a murder-suicide. These amendments were made in response to a high-profile conviction of a person found guilty of unlawful killing of their spouse who continues to have control over the right of interment where the victim is buried. The Secretary's new powers came into effect on the 15th of November 2021. It applies in respects to all rights of interment granted or transferred from this date. It also applies retrospectively to rights of interment purchased or transferred on or after 1 July 2005. Applications under the new power are made directly to the department. Depending on the outcome of the application, there may be steps for relevant trust to take. Where the Secretary grants an application, the relevant trust will be notified in writing by the department. The trust will then have a role in ensuring the right is exercised in accordance with the Secretary's decision and notify the department if the right holder does not comply with the Secretary's decision. There's no need for trust to be concerned about this process. The department will provide guidance and support to trusts as required. In addition to the changes to the Secretary's power, a number of minor and technical amendments were made to clarify ambiguities in the Act and address inconsistencies. These amendments came into effect on 1 March 2022. The amendments relate to a range of provisions, including delegations, rights of interment for cremated remains, exercising joint rights of interment, and the surrender of rights of interment. A fact sheet regarding all of these changes was sent out to all trusts. If you didn't receive those fact sheets, we also have resources available. You'll note the links on the slide are in blue. That means if you click on one of those links, you'll go straight to the resource that is identifying on the slide. So again, apologies for the technical difficulties, everyone. I know it's frustrating. There are direct links to the fact sheets in the slide pack, and copies of it are available on the department's website. You'll see the blue parts on the slides there. We've actually provided the links, so CCAV can, Narelle can click through on any of those links and provide you the website link. Obviously, all of these resources are available on the department's website. The first fact sheet relates to the Secretary's new powers and provides details about the application process. The second fact sheet relates to minor and technical amendments to the Act. And the third fact sheet provides Trust with information about managing voluntary surrenders of rights of interment in the light of the minor changes, management of refunds, who have voluntary surrender of refunds, and when the right of interment is payable, how to calculate refunds, and what happens to an interment once it's been surrendered. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the Performance and Support Program. The department's Performance and Support Program is designed to provide Class B Cemetery Trust with a private, tailored, independent review of their governance, operational and financial management processes. Each review assesses the Trust's governance systems, processes and practices, and identifies opportunities to strengthen those systems and processes. The department's engaged a company called NTT to deliver this program. This program is not just designed to review the performance of individual trusts, it also assists the department to evaluate the resources we develop for the sector so we can continue to improve and develop the support we provide. Slide 7, thanks, Dean. Each year, the department selects several Class B cemetery trusts for participation in the program, this support program. Selection is based on a range of criteria, including trust income and activity level, trust membership and attendance to training, the type of trust, for example, small, medium, large council trust, we like to get a mix for obvious reasons, the geographical location, to ensure that all trusts are selected from one area, governance or operational issues that have come to the department's attention. If your trust is selected, it doesn't mean that there are presently any problems at the trust. The trust can be performing very effectively and still have room to improve their systems and processes. The review will help them do this. So far, 30 Class B trusts have participated in the program, and I would like to sincerely thank all those trusts for engaging in the process and making the program successful. Slide 8, thanks, Dean. NTT uses performance audit methodology to complete the reviews. The slide presents an overview of the process and shows what trusts can expect to happen if they're selected to participate in the program. Initially, terms of reference are issued to the trust, which the trust has capacity to provide feedback on. NTT then gathers information from the trust and reviews its policies, procedures, governance, and operations. NTT then prepares a trust with guidance tailored to meet the needs and circumstances of the trust and lists recommended actions. This is provided to the trust for feedback. Once settled, the trust implements the recommended actions within an agreed time frame, usually 8 to 12 months. This is a consultative process, and trusts have the opportunity to provide feedback to NTT on the draft report before it's finalised. Next slide, please, Dean. At the end of each year, NTT provides the department with an annual report on the program's outcomes. The report is de-identified and available on our website. The report lists a number of common themes identified in the reviews that have been undertaken for that year. The 2020-21 annual report has made several suggestions where trusts can focus their efforts to improve their performance. And I'm just going to walk you through some of those suggestions for the next few slides. So the next slide, please, Deed. It goes without saying that not all the recommendations are suitable for all trusts, and your judgment will be needed to decide what will work best for your trust. So recommendation 1 suggests that trusts develop a financial strategy and budget for future developments, equipment purchases, cemetery maintenance into perpetuity. The department has developed guidelines and a budget template to assist trusts to meet this recommendation. The budget template can be tailored to suit each individual trust's individual circumstances. Next slide, please, Dean. Recommendation 2 suggests that trusts develop a risk management plan and put controls in place to manage organisational risk. The VMI website is an excellent resource for risk management information. It has a number of guidelines and templates available. In addition to this, the department has developed a fraud and protected disclosure policy that can be adapted or adopted by trusts. Also note that OVIC will be presenting on protective data security plans for Class B trusts later today. Recommendation 3 suggests that trusts have in place policies and procedures for contract management, including the review of contractor performance. Kind of any trust that have contracts, and you should have contracts if you've got employees. This is really important. I would really strongly suggest you consider getting contracts in place and reviewing them regularly if you don't do it. The department has developed a contractor policy template for Class B cemetery trusts, and there are a number of online resources available, as you can see, on the Buying Victoria and the Fair Work Ombudsman websites. Recommendation 4 suggests that trusts put in place an asset register. The department has developed a number of templates for asset registers that trusts can scan, develop or modify to meet their requirements. An example of a basic asset register is provided on the slide. The department has also developed financial guidelines for cemetery trusts, which is also available on our website. Recommendation 5 suggests that trusts put in place a simple complaints register to help them identify and manage ongoing issues. An example of a basic complaint register is provided on the slide. The department has developed a complaints policy template and a fact sheet about how to manage complaints. There's also a lot of useful information about complaint management on the Victorian Ombudsman's website. Recommendation 6 suggests that trusts put in place an instrument of delegation. Instruments of delegation allow trusts to delegate certain powers vested in trust to trust members or trust employees, for example, issuing rights of interment or allowing the interments in the cemetery. Please note, we've developed a new instrument of delegation. The new delegation instrument takes into consideration the power to approve or refuse an application for lift and reposition procedures. This change is a reflection of the minor amendments that we've recently introduced to the Act. So if you already have a delegation instrument in place, then I would suggest you just go and get a new one from our website and fill it in and replace the old one. If you haven't got one, well, this is the opportunity to go onto our website, get the instrument of delegation and delegate whichever powers the trust wants to delegate. And look, if this is a confusing area, we do deal with it in the training, but if you need more information about it, and it is something that trusts want us to do a much deeper dive on, let CCAV know, and we will prepare some materials for trusts that will be more helpful. Recommendation 7 talks about document management. I know OVIC will be presenting on this issue, so I won't go cover it off in this presentation. I'm sure trusts are familiar with the retention and disposal authority for cemeteries and crematoria records provided by PROV. This document identifies records which are to be preserved permanently as part of Victoria's archival heritage and retained for a specific period to satisfy legal, financial and other requirements relating to public administration. So a little bit of an update about the Cemetery Strategic Working Group. The Cemetery Strategic Working Group was established in 2018 to consider a range of emerging strategic issues affecting the cemetery sector. The working group is chaired by Steve McGee, the Parliamentary Secretary for Health, and was formerly chaired by Anthony Carbines. The membership includes Class A Trust chairpersons, the CEOs of Class A cemetery trusts, the CCAV and the department. The working group currently has 3 projects underway: an environmental sustainability project relating to emissions, a shared resource project which explores the benefits of sharing resources for common purposes across a group of trusts. And in this case, it's Class A trusts and, for example, a Chief Information Officer, and the Class B networking pilot project. So I'm going to talk about the Class B networking pilot project. The pilot project brings together a group of Class B cemetery trusts to share information, resources and ideas on how best to meet the operational and governance challenges that face cemeteries. The following 5 trusts have agreed to participate in the program: Eganstown, Glen Lyon, Spring Hill, Creswick and Glengower. The department's very grateful that these trusts have committed to the project with such positivity and enthusiasm. I want to thank them. So the department's recently met with each trust to discuss their individual priorities. And there were a number of commonalities across the group. Priority areas for the pilot project will include record keeping and moving to a digital format to secure burial records, cemetery mapping with GPS coordinates that link to those digital records, implementation of a standard set of policies and procedures for operational governance of cemeteries and trusts across the network, how to attract and retain volunteer members, establishing connections with other trusts in the local region, and funding for small cemeteries with little or no income, and fee setting. These are the questions that have been sent to the department by the CCAV. First question is, please outline what your team provides to trusts. So one of the key roles of the unit is the administration of the Act. As part of that, we do a whole lot of preparation of statutory documents for approval by the minister and, appointments. There are fee approvals. There are a whole range of approvals that we have to do that impact on the workings of the trusts. We also do investigations into governance issues and complaints. We also provide governance support to cemetery trusts in many ways. So as we've discussed today, we provide guidance material. And for example, you've got the Class A and B manuals, the guidelines, the fact sheets, the forms and templates, newsletters and websites. We come to meetings such as these and talk about those materials and answer questions. We provide support, direct support to trusts in terms of land management, fee setting, complaint management, interpretation of the legislation and the management of operational complaints. We administer the Cemeteries Grant Program, the trust member appointment process and advertising of vacancies, and the provision of governance and operational training. So there are a range of training for trusts. Second question is, are there any plans to extend the training to more specific units after having completed the initial essential cemetery training from last year. So the Cemetery Essential Training Program was our first experience in the development and delivery of online e-learning materials. We're really happy with how well the sector's engaged with the program, and we don't have any immediate plans to add further modules at this stage, but we're open to discussion with the sector, and we're happy to talk about CCAV to see what we can achieve in this space. You may recall that one of the drivers for the program was a discussion that we had with CCAV a few years ago. And there's a lot of work and a lot of thought that needs to be put in place to provide training programs that are relevant and pertinent to the sort of things that you need. But we're open for those discussions, and we're definitely open to expand the program where it's relevant and useful. 3, the acquisition of land for cemetery use is becoming an important issue for many in the sector. Are there guidelines to assist with this? And so the answer is yes. There is a property acquisition checklist for use by cemetery trusts to ensure proper processes are followed when acquiring land. The process is tailored for each individual project, depending on the project's requirements. So just contact the team in the early stages, and we'll have a discussion with you, and we'll do what we can to assist you. Obviously, we don't have experience in land purchase, but we might be able to get contacts within the department that do have. Does the department offer any assistance to trusts when investigating the possibility of extending cemetery grounds? So no, excuse me. So no, we don't provide that type of specialist assistance. My suggestion in the first instance would be this type of operational issue is something you can talk to a Class A trust about and seek appropriate advice. Definitely come and talk to us about the fact that you want to do this, because we will ask if around internally to see if any of our asset management people can provide some advice and insights, but we don't have any specialist assistance available. Does the department consider grant applications for the development of new areas within cemetery grounds? Yes, we do, absolutely. If you're developing a new area, we will consider a grant application for that. Number 6, where is the department at with the Class B networking project? I gave an update on that in the presentation, so I won't go back to that particular issue again. Could there be consideration given to adding another class to the cemetery structure to make the management of small and limited, less than 10 interments cemeteries more manageable? Less than 10 interments per year, I'm presuming, more manageable. At this stage, we're not considering including a new class in the Act. I'm not sure. The requirements under the Act require Cemetery Trust to submit an abstract of accounts. And of course, there's a range of materials that we've gone through today that Cemetery Trust can consider adopting. Again, the size and scale of a cemetery trust is really important. And from the department's viewpoint, cemetery trusts have a fair bit of flexibility in what they do engage in terms of the materials that we provide, what they don't engage in terms of the material that we provide. The Act doesn't specifically require you to engage in all the materials that I presented to you today. But from your perspective as a public entity, it may be useful to actually adopt some of the materials. There are certain things that trusts have to do, and Ovik will talk about that in terms of record keeping. But from our Act's perspective, trusts have a fair bit of flexibility. So changing the class of a cemetery trust to, say, you add in another class called C, wouldn't necessarily change the current requirements that apply to cemetery trusts under our Act, and it certainly wouldn't change the requirements that apply to cemetery trusts under other acts. So, and it's quite a complex process to change acts, and we're not planning to do it in the foreseeable future. And by that, I mean there's an election coming up, so we will not have an opportunity to change our Act coming up to the election because the legislative agenda is completely full. After an election, whatever government gets into power will be implementing its election agenda. And so the next 12 months after that is always very difficult to get onto the legislative agenda. And so realistically, we're talking for the next 18 months, there will be no changes to our Act. And if we did get permission to change our Act, it would take approximately 12 months to make changes. So you're looking at 2 years and 8 months before we could even possibly expect any changes unless there was an urgent matter that government directed us to attend to. I hope that answers that question. When will the Class B manual be up? When will the Class B manual be updated to reflect the minor amendments to the Act and be made available? So the Class B manual has had major changes made to it, and an updated version is on our website. In addition to those changes, the manual is being updated to reflect the minor and technical amendments, and we expect that to be available in sometime in April. We're also updating, for your interest, topic 13, cremation, topic 22, rights of interment, and topic 23, cemetery records, and we'd like to thank OVIC for contributing to the records topic. As I say, those updates should be ready in April. The final question, are there any policy guidelines to assist trusts to develop their own policies and procedures on how to identify and manage the transfer of right of interment when the original holder has died, that ensures that the process has been correctly applied? This is a great question because we're actually just in the process of developing some material for the sector on that, and it's literally sitting in my email for me to read and approve, and that will be on our website really soon. So we currently have information about managing a right of interment following the death of a right holder, and that's on the website. And as I said, we're just developing advice about updating historical records, and we'll thank you all. I apologize for the technical amendments. I really wanted to be with you there, but unfortunately work commitments meant I couldn't do it, but I'm determined to be at the next one in person. So thanks very much.